At the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we're live once again, but it was not long ago that we've had our second accident of the month of May, and this one has an impact on the run for the pole. Paul Tracy loses control of the car, down across the grass, and then back up to the wall, almost head-on into the barrier, slides across the track and down to the inside, near to the Armco barrier. He was taken out to an ambulance. Is truly on at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as we are here now with you on ESPN's Indy Live. We are currently under yellow light. I'm Paul Page with Derek Daly, and of course this is a terrible surprise here this afternoon. The cars that have been so perfect throughout the month of May, and those that certainly were seen as a possibility for the pole, if not the entire front row, led by Paul Tracy. Now Tracy's car is into the wall.
And he is in the hospital, but he's not seriously injured, but it was a very, very heavy impact. When you watch it in slow motion in particular, watch his head, because I have not seen a ragdoll effect to this extent for a long, long time. Here's the accident again in real speed. Heavy impact with the outside wall, temporarily knocking Paul Tracy unconscious.
Now the front end of the car at this point is shortened almost to the steering rack, and the pedals have been crushed upward, though the front end of the car appears to have done part of its job. Now we'll take a look at the same situation in slow motion, and take a look at the black marks he begins to lay down here.
Loses the back end of the car. Now it's all over. Across the grass, there's a very light impact which takes off the rear wing.
We have a green light again.
Now watch his head, because we're going to slow the video and stop it here. Watch his head. His complete head and the upper portion of his torso has come away from the seat and has actually hit and broken the steering wheel. That's what knocked him out. Watch again. Just look at that. On the second impact, the body still comes away from the seat, and Paul Tracy, very, very lucky to escape serious injury. The footbox of that car was undamaged. We got a chance to speak to Dr. Buck after the incident.
On his way to Methodist Hospital, when he was brought in here, he was awake and alert, complaining of some left foot pain. We're sending him down there for further evaluation of his foot and potentially for a head injury.
So Paul Tracy survives a very lucky and very fast impact with the wall.
I went over myself to look at the car, because obviously everybody wants to see the footbox area of these cars when they have such a heavy impact. It was remarkably in good shape. So I think Paul Tracy, if he does have foot injuries, he probably got his cot jammed down between the pedals. The head injury he's complaining about, well, his helmet was severely marked on the side where it impacted the side of the cockpit and broke the steering wheel.
What do you think the chances are, having seen what you have, that Paul Tracy will be able to run for the pole?
Well, of course, I guarantee you he's in the hospital now saying, I'm going to be ready to rock and roll. It's going to be down to Dr. Buck, who will make the final decision as to whether he thinks the head injury is severe enough to keep Paul Tracy out of the car tomorrow. I guarantee you Tracy, though, will say, yes, I want to go.
Well, let's hope that he is okay, and he can climb back into a race car and run for the pole, if not take the pole. Now, a little bit later, after they cleaned up, they went back to green flag once again for practice. This is Mark 15, Smith.
He came
now
right
watch him here. Wham! Right against the wall. Doesn't phase him.
Well, when you get out of the groove into that gray, there's almost no saving it. And Mark Smith, remember, he's at 215 to 220 miles an hour. Very lucky he didn't wipe the right side suspension off that, because then the car begins to spin and does an enormous amount of damage down on the inside, possibly.
Let's take a look at it just once more now. Now watch this. It shows you how really strong these cars are.
He's in the groove now. Now he loses it. Pushes it out. See how far he is on the gray? That was a magnesium flash from the wheels on the right-hand side as they impact the concrete. Quick flash of magnesium as it bursts into flames. Very lucky boy.
I'll tell you what, though, drives it right into the pit area. Nerves of steel for Mark Smith. Let's hope with those kind of nerves, he does make it into the Indy 500 when they begin to run for the pole tomorrow, the first of 4 days of time trials here at Indianapolis. It's been a beautiful day. We have much more coming to you live from Indy. Live at the Turn 2 Suites, the southeast turn in Indianapolis, and now looking at the Penske cars, that of Emerson Fittipaldi, as it sits in the pit area here at Indianapolis, which is where we are located, right in front of the Master Control Tower and just a few feet away from the start-finish line. In fact, it's right past here where on race day, the man who wins the Indy 500, perhaps woman with Lynn St. James, will pull onto a brand-new winner's circle. Now, what about the situation within the Penske team? Derek Daly is now with Roger Penske.
Roger, I know it's unfortunate that this has happened at such a late stage. Do you know yet what happened to Paul?
I didn't hear your question. I'm sorry.
Do you know yet, Roger, what happened to Paul?
Well, we had been out the time before doing a valve test, and he ran, I think, in the 226s or 227. He came in and made another valve change and then put more front wing in the car, and he was just going out down into 3, and maybe he just got in a little too hot. The wind's a little bit different down in 3 today than it's been, and maybe he just got caught up in the wind. The car seemed to be fine. We've looked at it. So at this point, the good news is he's all right. He's got a little bang on his foot. They're doing a CAT scan, which I'm glad they're doing, and he should be back tomorrow ready to go.
So you do feel at this stage he will have a realistic run for the pole?
Well, I hope he will. At the moment, he's just down there for observation. There's nothing broken, no issue, and we hope he's ready for sure.
Roger, do you have a pole speed prediction, knowing what your cars can potentially do?
Well, I think that, Emerson's been able to run 230. Bosell ran 230. You'd have to say it's going to be, depending on the weather condition, if it's windy tomorrow, it's cooler, we could run quicker, but I'd say you're probably going to see something over 230.
Roger, are you surprised that the Mercedes-Benz has been so reliable, an engine that only took 26 weeks to design and build?
Well, I think it was part of the program when we made the commitment. We started as quickly as we could to go forward on a very, very heavy durability probe test with it, which means running it harder than you think you would run it at the Speedway. And, knock on wood, until today, at least we can say we've had the 500-mile engine that Al ran last week. We had a 400-mile engine we took out of Emo's car 2 days ago, and then last night we took 2 engines out, one at 538 miles and one at 520, and they were running fine. So I don't want to get over-optimistic, but we'll do one more durability test next week in Michigan and then try to get ready for the race, so we feel good.
Roger, there tends to be 2 races here, one for the pole tomorrow and then one on race day. What's more important to Roger Penske and to his team?
Well, what's most important is this Saturday, and then what becomes important is the race, so you really have 2 races here at Indy.
There's confirmation that, in fact, it is 2 races, and Penske, as ever, will be ready.
Well, take a look there. Emerson Fittipaldi, Roger Penske's driver, as the yellow light has just winked on here, so Emma will turn off into the pit area. He was flirting with laps right around 230 miles an hour. Let's take a look at the top speeds today. And, of course, Emerson Fittipaldi is at the top of that order at 230.138 miles an hour. Second quick of the day was Paul Tracy at 228.693. The good news is Roger Penske reports they expect him in the car. Al Unser Jr. at 227.3 miles an hour. Scott Brayton at 227, and Nigel Mansell at 226.8 miles an hour. Those are the top speeds. One man is facing a very important day here as we look at the bottom half of the top 10, and that is Mario Andretti. Michael Andretti's name, by the way, appears twice there because we're talking his primary car, which is faster, which is actually slower than his backup car. But the man whose day is going to be very important because it's his last qualification at Indianapolis is Mario Andretti. Well, his brother, twin brother, by the way, Aldo, is with Gary.
Yeah, sometimes, Paul, when you're dealing with twins, you can't really believe what your eye is seeing, because if you go back to the qualifying picture from 1969, well, it wasn't Mario in there. It was his twin brother, Aldo, because you'll recall Mario had been burned in a practice crash, and your face looked better for the picture, right?
Yeah, that's what he said. He didn't want to spoil the pictures for AJ and Bobby. So they talked me into doing it. which it was a laughing matter for me at first, and then I found out they were serious.
That's the first time you ever stepped in for your brother. You've never signed his autograph.
No, sir. I never did, Gary.
I tell you what, you've been out here this week, and I've not had a chance to visit with you, but you have a lot to watch with a son, John, a couple of nephews with Michael and Jeff, and your twin brother, his final go around here at Indy.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll tell you what, Mario will be missed. That's something that I can hardly explain. There'll be a void, I'm sure, after this year with him missing, but I'm sure he'll always be present in some other way, in some other capacity.
It's always nice to see you two. Aldo, back to you, Paul.
Well, the best guess, of course, is that other capacity is that he will be back as a car owner. And will he be the car owner of son Michael? Only time will tell. We'll be back with more live from Indianapolis. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a spectacular crowd for a practice day, and everybody enjoying it. We are under yellow right now while they do another check of the race course. Now, you know, tomorrow and during the race, during time trials in the race, properly said, is the only time that you can actually turn an official lap and go into the record book. There are people that have gone faster than the records. Derek Daly is with one of them.
We're unfortunately with a man who's in the midst of a major struggle here, Jim Crawford, who you right, Paul, set that unofficial track record above 233 miles an hour, is in the 91 Lola run by Riley and Scott. Bob Riley is here with his engineer. They're discussing the car. It has way too much push. Lap speeds in the 205 range. But move back here to a car that really should be getting a lot more interest than it has, because in the back of this car here that Johnny Parsons is just about to step into is the Greenfield engine. Now, this engine here is built to the same specification as the Mercedes engine. It's a 209 cubic inch engine, has the potential to produce 950 reliable horsepower. Only problem, most of its running has been on the dyno. Johnny Parsons jumped into this car last Sunday, only did 2 slow laps. They've had major engine troubles, but Parsons, who's been in this race so many times before, and by the skin of his teeth on many occasions, hopes to get this new Greenfield engined 93 Lola into the field.
That's one of the fascinating things about the Speedway. As you look at that magnificent crowd, as they're looking for this, they call it happy hour. It is the last hour of the day during practice. Not during qualifying weekends. They don't call that happy hour. This is the happy hour during practice. Now, Johnny Parsons Jr. is one of a whole group of drivers that stand around, they wait, they don't get their deals till the last minute. But I'll tell you something, it's guys like JP that anytime an owner finally needs somebody to get in and make a car work, they're the kinds of drivers that can get it done. Now, let's go down to Gary Lee once again with Brian Herta.
We've had a chance several times this week to talk to Brian. He is a defending Firestone Indy Lights champion. You've moved into A.J. Foyt's Copenhagen Skoal car. And now can you make a comparison between this chassis, the IndyCar, and the Indy Lights chassis that you simply dominated last year?
Well, I guess it depends who you ask. If you ask A.J., the difference is about $300,000. But for me, the difference really is just the speeds are a lot higher than we run here at Indianapolis and the other tracks. So about 400 horsepower more horsepower and a lot more downforce.
Are you finding a comfort level? You've been up around 219. That's obviously not going to be fast enough at what we predict right now to make the show. You'll find an extra 2 or 3 miles an hour perhaps. But are you at a comfortable level at that speed?
Oh, yeah, we've been real comfortable, and we got some more speed from there. We've just been playing around with a couple different things on the car today. We've run 219 with just about everything we've thrown at it. We're going to try and run a little quicker here right now as soon as the track goes green and do some practice qualifying laps.
We're still under green, or under yellow, we should say. Momentarily, we've got green, and he'll be asked for more practice, Paul.
Well, I'll tell you something. Anytime you want to know something, especially about the production-based engines or the alternate racing engines of the Speedway, there's one place I always go. It's back to Jim Wright's garage. Derek Daly can check in with him now.
Exactly, Paul. Jim Wright has probably more experience than most people here in the pit lane with the Buick V6, but also with these new 209 cubic inch engines, Jim, because you actually built the Brayton engine and actually had it running on the dyno. How much horsepower can these engines make?
Well, I'm making excess of 900 horsepower pretty easy.
Are you surprised how quickly the Mercedes-Benz engine became a reality and how well it's running here?
Well, yeah, that was probably the biggest surprise. Was they supposedly started on it the 1st of November and had it running on the dyno in 24 weeks, which is almost an impossibility.
Now, is it cubic inches, or is it the low revving ability of the engine that makes it potentially a winner now?
Well, I think what it is, it's the cubic inches. That cubic inch rule has been here for 8 or 10 years, and it just so happened that finally somebody really took advantage of it. Mr. Greenfield's got this engine. We had the Brayton engine, and now the Mercedes, and all of them are very capable of, more horsepower than we've seen here for a long time.
More horsepower than they've seen here for a long time, Paul. That may be the key from now on to whether you win or lose this race.
Well, of course, part of that is how long will that rule remain in effect if, in fact, the Penskes run away with the pole position tomorrow. That remains to be seen. We'll be back. Back live at Indianapolis as anticipation builds as we move into our last minutes of practice before the run for the pole, which takes place, of course, tomorrow. This is the last full day of practice, the last chance that people have to find out what their equipment will do. And at this time of the day, the air cools a little bit, and the wind has almost completely stopped here. So we should see some speeds in the next few minutes. But first, let's meet another one of the rookies in the field, rookie at Indianapolis, but Formula One veteran. He's now with Gary Lee.
Well, certainly Mauricio Gugelmin is in the cockpit and would love to be out on the racetrack running. Under yellow, we have a chance to talk to these drivers, but this is the happy hour, the last chance they really had to practice in these conditions. Does this add some more pressure as you sit in the cockpit waiting to get back out?
Hey, basically, this is the last day to get the last fine-tuning right, and tomorrow is the big day that everybody's expecting. And for whatever reason, today with the hits, the cars are changing a little bit, the setup. Everybody's going a little bit loose, so we're just doing the last work, and that's probably the last time we're going to get time to do it.
This is something totally new for you in an aspect of racing on an oval, plus having this much time to prepare before qualifying. Does it become nerve-wracking to have a whole week to prepare before you actually run for a starting position?
I mean, if you don't control yourself, it can become very tense. It's a long month, and we just gone through the first week, and that's already more than I ever done in my career for a race event, but it is a big event, and we all go for it.
Well, there's the green light, which is our cue to get out of there as they fire up the engine, the Chip Ganassi Hollywood car. And, Paul, we'll go back to you at the start-finish line.
Well, they'll come back up to speed. It'll take them a little bit, almost a lap or two before they get up to full speed. That gives us a chance to take a look at some of the drivers and what they think the run for the pole might be. We just went to guys all up and down the pits and said, hey, how fast? What will it take?
Before pole day, and I put down, I think it was 231.5, somewhere in that area. It might creep up to be a little bit more about that area, but we'll wait and see. I think the average is going to be about 25, and I think you need about 220 to get in the race.
I'm going to go pretty conservative on the pole speed. I say, it's 4 laps. You'll see a 4-lap average somewhere around the 230-mile-an-hour range. And to make the field, I think you'll have about 11-mile-an-hour split. I think you'll see the 219, maybe 218 making the field.
Pole man back in 1985, maybe a bit of a struggle right now. What's it going to take just to make the race?
I'm not sure. I figure it's going to be somewhere in the 220s. At least that's my guess right now. It's going to depend on what kind of day we have Saturday and, what it turns out to be for a pole speed. The cars are real critical to the temperature and, wind conditions and stuff like that. So, it's hard to say right now.
What are you shooting for right now? What will you be satisfied with this weekend or next weekend to feel confident it will stay in the show?
220, I think.
And what about the pole speed?
228?
It could be as high as 230, I reckon, if the conditions permit it.
And what would you accept if you were another team that perhaps were not going as fast as you're going right now? What would you accept for a speed to make the race?
I think 220s will be on qualify day, Yeah, at least 220, I reckon.
I think on the pole around 230s. I don't think you can get a lot more than that, at least in our case. And to make the race on 220s, I think it'll be higher than last year.
Now you're giving me a political answer. Now let's pin this down just a little more. The pole speed 230 watt and 220 watt to make the race.
Say the pole 229 8.
And to make the race
219 7.
Well, this first weekend, I think I wouldn't settle for anything unless it was 22.5 first weekend. And, you know, weather's a big factor in all this. On the pole, I wouldn't be surprised to see 234.5.
I reckon it's not going to be as fast as everybody thinks. I think it's going to be around 229, 230 for the pole. And to make the race, though, it's probably going to take close to 220 or 219, 220, I'd say.
Well, there you have it, some of the opinions from the drivers themselves. What speed might it take to make the pole? At the same time, what will it take to make the field? We'll be back with more from Indy Live. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as Raul Boisel is just coming in after a couple of laps at speed, though he still needs a little speed. This could be one of the guys that would make a world of difference. Let's go around with our team here now, beginning with Gary Lee, as we're going to show you the top 33 speeds for the month. This, theoretically, if there were no qualifying, you know, and you took these speeds, this is the way the field might look. But let's go first to Gary Lee. Gary, what's your pick for the month of May and why?
Well, I think I'll take Emil for the pole, but as far as the speed, I don't really know. There are too many variables. Track conditions with wind, the temperature, the draw. I don't know what it may be. I would like to see a new track record, but I think Emil will start from the pole position come race day.
All right, so the pick there is Emerson Fittipaldi. Take a look for your favorite driver through this lineup as we keep an eye on Marco Greco, who moves down the front straight. Derek Daly, your analysis.
I have to go with Emerson also, but I think I'll go out slightly more on a limb than Gary Lee, and I'll say that it will be a track record. I've seen many times a mile or 2 miles an hour gain on qualifying morning, and I just think Penske might have a little bit more. The pole and the track record is very, very important to Mercedes-Benz.
We look at Michael Andretti now.
I didn't give you time. I'm sorry. 2:32.9 is what I'm going to go with.
I was going to try and catch you on that. I tell you what I think. He's a fighter. He's tough. If they let him out of the hospital, and it sounds like they will, I've got to pick Paul Tracy for the pole at 234.5 for the 4-lap average here. We'll keep an eye on all of these cars, all of these speeds. Michael Andretti out there, the quickest moving at the time, though he has not yet eclipsed his best time of the month. His last lap at 2:23.747. Still the top of the order for today and for the month is Emerson Fittipaldi. He has been the quickest thus far. It's been a magnificent day. We really wish we could stay with you another half hour or so. But I think right now Derek Daly and I are going to enjoy ourselves sitting on the pit wall and getting an idea of this final half hour of practice. And for those of you that mentioned, tell us more about the Mercedes engine, we've told you all we know. Our next coverage will be live at 3 o'clock here on ESPN, and of course, whole day coverage on ABC tomorrow. So this is Paul Page for Derek Daly and Gary Lee. Thanks for staying with us here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We will have live coverage all next week, as well as on the time trial. So long.
That Ayrton Senna was hit in the head by part of his car, causing his death. According to Max Mosley, president of the International Automobile Federation, a part of Senna's suspension went through his helmet. Senna, a three-time world champion, died after crashing during the San Marino Grand Prix. It's still not known what caused Senna to leave the track at a speed of 192 miles per hour. No change in the condition of Austrian driver Karl Wendlinger, who crashed during practice yesterday for the Monaco Grand Prix. The 25-year-old is battling severe head injuries and is on a respirator. According to doctors, it could be at least 48 hours before there are any further developments in his condition. And in the wake of Wendlinger's crash and the death 2 weeks ago of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger, Formula One has decided to make these changes in an attempt to make the sport safer for the drivers. Strengthening the wishbone will make the front wheels less likely to detach. It has been said that a wheel may have struck Senna in the head, contributing to his death. Grand Prix drivers are meeting today, which is traditionally a rest day before Saturday's final qualifying. They're discussing safety conditions. Now, there is speculation that Sunday's race may be canceled if Wendlinger's condition worsens.
And as practice continued today on the eve of the Indy time trials, an accident involving one of the drivers who was expected to contend for the pole position. 25-year-old Paul Tracy, the Canadian driver, lost control coming out of turn 4. He seemed to lose it in his powerful Mercedes Penske car, and he slid down the banking across pit row and into the outside wall. Tracy suffered a concussion, was complaining of a serious pain in his left foot. He was taken to Methodist Hospital as a precaution. Tracy had just completed a lap of more than 228 miles per hour. Fastest times of the day, once again, Emerson Fittipaldi. He had the fastest time on Thursday at 230-plus miles per hour. Paul Tracy, until the accident, had a nice run at 228 miles an hour. Al Unser Jr., 227 and change. More than ever before, with more powerful Mercedes engines, more speed will be the overriding story at Indy this year.
I think it's going to depend a lot on the weather. If we have good conditions like I did when I did the record, I think it's going to take at least 234. I think my record is definitely going to be gone. Again, it will depend on the weather, but I think it should be gone.
Rumor going around the garage area is you have to walk up and down at the Penske garage, I think, right now to see what they think they might run. And I know that they weren't anticipating maybe run that fast, and they popped off some 229s, but, you know, I think there's probably some more there to come from just about everybody.
The common theory is the new Indianapolis Motor Speedway qualifying record posted this weekend will be however fast the Penske drivers want to push their powerful new Mercedes V8 engine. Although the Penskes are favored, there's still room for surprise. Don't forget the muscle of the Ford Cosworths, which power the cars of Mario Andretti, Nigel Mansell, and this year's potential spoiler, Raul Boesel. Remember, Ford captured 4 of the top 5 qualifying spots in '93. And you can't mention speed without reference to the current Indy record-holding stock block Buick utilized by the Reynard team and led by former front-row starter Eddie Cheever.
All depends really on the weather, track conditions, and if you can really get that little extra on the combination of the car and myself.
I know that our car is capable of doing laps of 230. I would like to be able to put 4 laps of 230 together, and I think if I can do that, I might be able to trip and stumble my way to the front row.
In Indianapolis, I'm Jerry Punch, ESPN.
To have done part of its job. Now we'll take a look at the same situation in slow motion. And take a look at the black marks he begins to lay down here.
Loses the back end of the car. Now it's all over. Across the grass, there's a very light impact which takes off the rear wing.
We have a green light again.
Now watch his head, because we're going to slow the video and stop it here. Watch his head. His complete head and the upper portion of his torso has come away from the seat and has actually hit and broken the steering wheel. That's what knocked him out. Watch again. Just look at that. On the second impact, the body still comes away from the seat, and Paul Tracy, very, very lucky to escape serious injury. The footbox of that car was undamaged. We got a chance to speak to Dr. Buck after the incident.
On his way to Methodist Hospital, when he was brought in here, he was awake and alert, complaining of some left foot pain. We're sending him down there for further evaluation of his foot and potentially for a head injury.
So Paul Tracy survives a very lucky and very fast impact with the wall.
I went over myself to look at the car because obviously everybody wants to see the footbox area of these cars when they have such a heavy impact. It was remarkably in good shape. So I think Paul Tracy, if he does have foot injuries, he probably got his cot jammed down between the pedals. The head injury he's complaining about, well, his helmet was severely marked on the side where it impacted the side of the cockpit and broke the steering wheel.
What do you think the chances are, having seen what you have, that Paul Tracy will be able to run for the pole?
Well, of course, I guarantee you he's in the hospital now saying, I'm going to be ready to rock and roll. It's going to be down to Dr. Bach, who will make the final decision as to whether he thinks the head injury is severe enough to keep Paul Tracy out of the car tomorrow. I guarantee you Tracy, though, will say, yes, I want to go.
Well, let's hope that he is okay and he can climb back into a race car and run for the pole, if not take the pole. Now, a little bit later, after they cleaned up, they went back to green flag once again for practice. This is Mark
15,
Smith.
and he came
now
right
watch
on
him
in.
here. Wham! Right against the wall. Doesn't phase him.
Well, when you get out of the groove into that grade, there's almost no saving it. And Mark Smith, remember, he's at 215 to 220 miles an hour. Very lucky he didn't wipe the right side suspension off that, because then the car begins to spin and does an enormous amount of damage down on the inside, possibly.
Let's take a look at it just once more now. Now watch this. It shows you how really strong these cars are.
He's in the groove now. Now he loses it. Pushes it out. See how far he is on the gray? That was a magnesium flash from the wheels on the right-hand side as they impact the concrete. Quick.
At the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we're live once again, but it was not long ago that we've had our second accident of the month of May, and this one has an impact on the run for the pole. Paul Tracy loses control of the car, down across the grass, and then back up to the wall, almost head-on into the barrier, slides across the track and down to the inside, near to the Armco barrier. He was taken out to an ambulance. Is truly on at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as we are here now with you on ESPN's Indy Live. We are currently under yellow light. I'm Paul Page with Derek Daly, and of course this is a terrible surprise here this afternoon. The cars that have been so perfect throughout the month of May, and those that certainly were seen as a possibility for the pole, if not the entire front row, led by Paul Tracy. Now Tracy's car is into the wall.
And he is in the hospital, but he's not seriously injured, but it was a very, very heavy impact. When you watch it in slow motion in particular, watch his head, because I have not seen a ragdoll effect to this extent for a long, long time. Here's the accident again in real speed. Heavy impact with the outside wall, temporarily knocking Paul Tracy unconscious.
Now the front end of the car at this point is shortened almost to the steering rack, and the pedals have been crushed upward, though the front end of the car appears